would fit
Sorry,
in.
Bert. Let me just say
Uh,
something.
yeah,
I'm gonna just record the conversation. So if any of you doesn't want to be seen, please turn off your video because we're gonna send the recording to a few people that have asked. So just a little technicality.
okay.
Sorry to interrupt, Bert.
Yeah, so I'm excited about this experiment. Maybe it's not an experiment, but it's maybe a new thing for myself to spend more time around this subject of, for me, relates to consciousness, sort of how the work, the structural integration fits into a different view on how things are related than maybe in the times that we were thinking more mechanically. And so if I think about the time in Ida Rolf's time, like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 60s, 70s, um, it was a kind of revolutionary way that she viewed, that she looked at the body and the body mind. And now I understand also that she came very much from also being a biologist from a metaphysical uh, view, and at the same time she was also very interested in quantum physics because she was in Zurich in Switzerland in the 60s, 70s, going there and study quantum physics. So that she must have been aware from that what we called metaphysics, and I think now we don't call it anymore metaphysics because the quantum physics showed us that was a line that the mechanical people drew about, what is reality and what's not reality, and things that you cannot measure is sort of not real. That was sort of the commonplace that um, that I start learning because I'm sort of uh, started in the studying psychology in the end of the beginning 70s, and so we didn't know yet, we didn't have MRIs, and so we didn't know how the brain functions. So there was only in the 80s that there was a kind of cognitive revolution that we suddenly thought everything we know now where it all comes from. We know the brain, and we know cognitively um, how we can change behavior and how it influences behavior, and um, and and actually, then I think in the 74 or so, after my studies, I went to Esselen, and that's where I met Rolfing and the whole human potential movement. And so that was really breaking through the cognitive structure of academic studies. For me, it was like a rebirth to sort of find my body and to talk about consciousness in a different way as something we don't know. So um, for me, that was really like a total change, and I sort of decided also then after some time later to study structural integration. And uh, because I had experienced it on my body and I knew how instrumental it was in the change that I was going through, and helpful for the things I was looking for. And so then also I met an Irish teacher where I learned a lot about aura and energy work and chakras and and that whole relationship of energy with how energy relates to the body mind. So that was helpful. Maybe for 20 years I visited him and had workshops there. And at the same time also I together with my wife, we organized retreats related to energy work and meditation. While at the same time we were practicing Rolfing of SI, structure integration, and living in Florence and traveling to Zurich, and so then at a certain point I started understanding and going into more quantum physics, and I think I started really understanding deeply the idea about that in the material world. Hello, Maya. I understood in the material world that there's no basis, no material basis for a material world. So if you what they studied is that if you break everything down to the smallest particles and you come to quantum, that for a long time they thought quantum is as a particle, the smallest particle. Then they found out no, it's a particle field, quantum field, and quantum is sort of it's sort of an happening moment of on a wave of things happening, and so basically every particle is based on a field. Every cell that we have, because our cells are sort of, if you break them down in ions or in smaller particle, you could say they are basically just waves of energy. So what we call particles is basically all waves. So you could say, so I start feeling, okay, our body and the tissues and the cells that all in our body are energy waves. And so if you think you are in a working in a material world, then you start sort of trying to move things, matter, move it in a certain place. Say it doesn't belong here, you put it somewhere else. And I realized that if that's not the nature of the stuff that we are, that we're doing something strange. You put mechanical force in the body, and how it responds, you don't know. So when you understand that we are sort of basically fields of energy, of electromagnetic fields, that in the body there's energy streams and things relating on a very intelligent way together. If you start relating and understanding that we are a field also ourselves, it's like no, there's not a me or an I, but it's more I'm related. Can only define myself maybe as being related in anything. So if I want to communicate with fields and energy, I need to sort of have that refinement in myself to be able to tune to energy, and which is for me related to awareness, mindfulness, or what I learned in I had a Buddhist training, so where I learned that you have to be in a very special state to perceive things. At least you should not be entangled in complicated mind stuff and thinking and stuff like that about. So you need, Eckhart Tolle says we need to find stillness in ourselves to be able to observe and to feel and hear and touch. So that's my idea of what a part of the retreat would be, is to work towards refinement in our perception, in how we listen, how we relate to ourselves, and how we can be informed. For instance, I was really thinking about what Chiara was describing about Loural. That place had a certain, it's created, it's a natural place. So I can imagine that it was a wonderful way to sort of tune into to nature as a way of tuning into our sort of sense of coherence in ourselves and refinedness in ourselves. So, but so consciousness you can define in two ways. Consciousness is either, and that's a big discussion, created by the brain. There's a lot of scientists say this is all what we think and feel is what we create ourselves by our brain. And there's another part of saying, no, consciousness is where everything is coming from. So it is in it, but it is not. The consciousness is not of the brain, but it's consciousness is with the brain. But so the consciousness is in that perspective based on a potential that you cannot describe, because you cannot sort of cognitively sort of say what consciousness is if what we are is just coming from a potential field, and which you cannot, like quantum physics says, you get to a point that you don't know what it's all about. So it is being with with something that you don't know, that formed is a wonderful, intelligent body, and with its nervous system and with its organs in it, and so you cannot. How would you say? You have to, in order to see why what happens with people with us when we are not conscious, that the brain is creating a lot of problems for us, like we see now, ethics and war and stuff like that, and conflicts that people make, and they differentiate between me and you, which is, if you go to the core of what we're talking about, there is no me and there's no you. You are fields. But if you have this interpretation, and then you have this highly intelligent system, which comes like with nuclear energy, you can use it in a very creative way, or you can use it for bombs. It's like we have this highly sensitive system that if we treat it highly sensitive, we sort of have wisdom in it. We have possibilities to create a quality that it's made from, that we are made from, which is basically, we can feel it, we can understand maybe a bit of where we come from by quality of things as love or warmth, support, understanding, being coherent, being complete in ourselves. And I'm sure that all these people look for this coherence. I want to be listened to. I want to be heard. I want to be safe. I want to be sort of in a safe ground to be creative and using my potential. so that is the measurement in psychology. I also work as a psychotherapist. People want to feel coherent, want to be whole, want to feel safe, and we are traumatized in some way or not, more or less. And being traumatized, it basically goes into this not being able to feel warm, safe, trusted, stuff like that. So I think it all shows that we are looking for something that we're not able to run the show from. It's like we have to go in retreat. We have to go sit once in a while in the day. We make breaks in order to tune in to yourself, and being able to tune into the ground of where we're coming from. We need to be still. We need to stop the mind. Well, you cannot stop the mind in what it does, but you can stop identifying with the mind. So it's really coming back in a place from where you you don't get confused. It's like I use very often the example with clients that if you are in a bar, a busy bar with a lot of sound and people talking and drinking beers and being tattooed all over and just being there, and you want to make yourself clear and find a space or talk to someone, you have to scream and to be on another level. And if we are in that world living kind of, who am I in here? Yeah, well, my voice could be a little bit higher or not. So what you do usually then, if you're sort of clever, you go out of the bar and find a place and sit quietly with your back to a tree and sort of say, I'm finding my voice. I'm finding myself. I'm finding something, and that is what you do when you sort of sit back for a moment, you meditate or so. The noise around you, the noise that you produce yourself, and all of that goes back a little bit to the ground, and then you start maybe finding a place of quiet, and then maybe from that place of quiet, a radiation into your body, into your senses, and then you go and pick up your things and do what you need to do. So, so we need in a certain way to find that the source of ourselves. And now the jump to making a jump to fascia is that it seems to be in its purely embryological in how it is. Embryological in the sense that that everything is possible, that it has a high quality of knowing. It's like we don't know, but the fascia is everywhere, touching everything in the body. All organs are sort of in the field of fascia, of this. Fascia has, in one way, the attention structure or form, and the other way, it's highly sensitive because it's millions of nerve endings. So it's perceiving. So it's a highly sensitive part of ourselves. And if you work with fascia, it's like you have to tune in to that sort of not knowing what to do, not knowing what is the best to do in this body. So you have to get to tune into something from where you start listening to yourself, making yourself sharper in your listening, but also conveying something to the client of creating a felt sense. So like if they start listening to your hands, and we call it felt sense also in psychology, something you don't know yet what it is, but you're ready to receive information. So at the moment that you apply felt sense. It's like what you, I mean, I use it a lot in structural integration, is that I feel that I will be informed in some way, not from a planned knowledge, but it's just I'm open to feel what is needed. And if I can convey that to and do something with my touch in the tissue, well, that the client starts also getting a sense of, oh, I felt something. Oh, I start breathing, or something changed, or something happens. It's like it is something working like in creativity. You don't know where it's leading to, but you are listening in a very fine environment to be informed in what needs to be done. And my experience as a client very often in structural integration was like somebody puts their hands on me and I suddenly start breathing in a part of myself or feeling something. I say, oh, I missed that for a long time. I want to go with that. So it's the journey of being with uh, uh, with fascia relates very much to that. Fascia has that direct relationship in a way to consciousness, the ground of where it comes from, and has the possibility to work with that. And where the brain is already very much informed also on danger and survival systems. And so the brain is in a certain sense very dominating because of trauma. And so at the moment that we can work starting from fascia, when you start working from fascia, you really start getting information and doing something that is not structured by a cognitive structure of your brain. It's not directly already repressed by fear, by traumatic sensation. So it's like, oh, you interfere and you come into the system in a safe way. If you are safe, you come in a safe way in the system. And then the information that you feel through yourself, in yourself, from your source, can be communicated very directly to the nervous system. So like they say, also fascia is a semiconductor. It's very sensitive for information. There's a lot of energy streams in it and frequencies in it. So it has a very direct connection, quick, faster connection to the brain than the brain could connect to what it's doing. So it overrules the brain in a way. And then, of course, patterns are still there that you have to work with. But what I'm trying to say is that the fascia is such a sensitive, highly sensitive organ, but also reduced because of trauma. So the proprioception, I perceive my body, if there's danger, it is in the tissue, and we know that fascia sort of dries out in certain places. It withdraws in its form. It relates as in a defensive stuff because it's informed for danger. And at the moment that you start finding an entrance door that's sort of not going over those channels of information, but is a direct information on the tissue in the body. And you could say in a certain way that all the cells in the body, as I said in the beginning, are energy fields. They are all when they become sensitive to what the environment is. Let's say if you feel loved and feel warm, your cells are eating it, enjoying it, taking it in. So we are so sensitive in that it's so important how the environment is that we experience. Problem is very often that because of trauma, we create an environment a world around us where we are afraid for people, where we don't trust, and whatever. So we have to get into interrupting this experience of how we feel the world. But it comes from the inside. So we say there's proprioception, that's how you, from the inside of interoception, how you feel from the inside, how safe the world is. Proprioception is sort of how you feel in where you are, and exteroception is like how you perceive the outside, and but that's all connected. So if I don't feel safe, the environment is not safe. So we create actually a world from our experience, and of course in the experience, parents and there's generations of information passed on to us. So I'm so very much interested in how can we get into, for myself, and how can we get in our work to meet people in a safe place, in a warm place, in a protective place. And that you, from that experience, start being creative yourself. Say, oh, I'm coming from that place. It's part of me. It's part of all of us. The world is not divided, as they tell me. It's not like danger for you, the other you, the stranger, what we feel around now. People talk about me and the other, and I'm feeling endangered by people coming from everywhere to abuse our wives and children and food and stuff like that. Where did that all come from? It's from it's not coming from from the source that we are. Because everybody will die at a certain point, and you have to trust that people, when they die, feel that they can let go and melt in a universal consciousness. But I'm afraid that if your whole life you've been in danger and fighting others, I don't know how you would feel at the moment of your death. And so for me, that is, I hope I can convey a little bit what I'm saying, that in the work we're doing, we have this incredible, powerful and subtle possibility to do something where it's really changing. But if I'm doing structural integration from a mechanical point of view, say, oh, that's a very interesting idea. I'm sure people work like that also. Say, well, I put the body together. There's, on basis of pain and trauma in the body, you manipulate. I'm sure you do good work because of your intentions, and the 10 session system is an incredible safe system to work in, I guess. But it's still different if you sort of say, well, I'm an energy field. I'm meeting another energy field, and we are taking a dance. I said once in the beginning we could use this workshop from the form to the formless. It was like, if you don't know the formless, how can you know who you are in the form? And there's a dance. It's like in Buddhism, we would say it's a tantric dance almost. Like because if we are really feeling well and good in our skin and everything, we are movement, we are energy. If you feel love, when you fall in love, and everything is, the whole system is sort of in that energy field. If you, let's say, in orgasm, for instance, if there's a good sort of union, there's a movement through your spine. It's like everything feels like, oh, I'm coming home. This felt the best I've ever felt, or something like that, even if it's for a second. So everything is movement. If you start playing, dancing, if you, like, if I'm always impressed by dance. You know, like Chiara was a dancer, and I was very much informed by the choreographies of Hans van Malen. You know, and, it is also there is possibility by certain movements and energy movements and breaking patterns of stiffness and mechanical movements. You start feeling space. It's like uh, people who work with him would say, yeah, sometimes you just open doors and you felt just pure space beyond space time. It was an experience. And so I think that's my line of thinking, and I feel that um, that is what we can create. I think a possibility of safety and creativity in many different ways, and so that's kind of an introduction, isn't it? And what I was writing down is like you're looking for coherence, coherence, and the thing is, if you go in nature, you find it also. Some people like to go in nature and sit to a tree or listen to the birds and feel you get informed, you know, and then being informed, that's why it doesn't so us so good because we meeting our own soul, our own source of where we coming from, and and it's incredible that we have this body which has so much possibility. We see a lot of good people, artists and musicians and stuff, working from the unknown, you know, waiting for a creative moment and to do something in the space time that helps people maybe to transform in some sense. So um, coherence is a very fundamental thing that we work with and looking for to find. And we don't find it always immediately, but we have an intention and some ethics and sort of trust that we can work with it. Yes, and this discussion of consciousness is created by the brain. Well, if you think in the way I do, I think you feel that the brain would actually, you find out that if you look in, if somebody is really happy and more and sort of very sort of connected and compassionate, and they put people in the MRIs like monks, Tibetan monks, and study what happened in compassion, in the compassional state. They found in the brain all kinds of places that were active. But I never heard that they found where the feeling is at that moment. The feeling of happiness, of compassion, where is it? You could see technical, like lighting up of cells and so on. But where is that? Where is the feeling of love and warmth? Of what you create at a certain moment, you make something and you feel really happy with yourself that you concluded a job or something, and you get this space, this relief. Where is it? Where do you feel it? It is not. I tell you, nobody until now found that you can place that feeling in the body. You could see that the body is ready to do anything of function in that space, but you could not see where that is, and that's actually because it's not material. It's not a material thing, and so the discussion consciousness, is it made in the brain? To me, it's no, because it's not. It cannot even prove it. But they say, well, because it's created, it's there, and so it must be created by the brain. But that's not a very sort of. It's like in the old days to explain this thing. It was saying, well, if you start fishing and you want to measure, well, say what is fish, you want to measure what fish is, you make a net and you make holes in it, and then you sort of form those holes. You have a sort of unit thing, and then you start fishing. You get all big fish and all everything. See, that's fish. You measure it, but then there are small holes, and there's small fishes that could go there through there. And you say, what about those? Say, well, we can't measure them, so then we don't consider them fish. It's not practical. We don't do that because that's what we can measure, or we can't measure. We cannot measure. And so what we are doing is beyond measurement in terms of measuring. It's a feeling. It's an awareness. It is, and the felt sense is sort of coming from that awareness where you're still open, not knowing what to do. And one of my first teachers that I saw was a Korean Zen master, and he didn't speak very well English, but he said, only thing he always said, well, you have to have a don't know mind. You have to go to a don't know mind. The mind has, don't know more. There was a journalist, and then he said, he understood not so much don't know mind. He said, a donut mind, And then he said, yes, that's actually what it is, that hole in there, And so whatever you talk about, you can't talk about what that is, that nothing, that emptiness. You can experience it as a space and space-time and pleasure, but there's no way that you can put in a word on every word you put on. You can use metaphors, of course, but it's not it, but not the experience itself. So that's the sort of where I'm coming from, and I was listening to John Sharkey, who is invited in Prague in the symposium, and he's a researcher on fascia, and he was talking about the stochastic quality, which relates a little bit to that sort of that it has a possibility to the fascia has the possibility to do new things. You cannot sort of control it. If you let it be, it is creative. You have probabilities very often, like a system tendency in the system to recreate patterns, which is also a psychological thing that sometimes is a big problem, because the more you create patterns and behavior is fixed, and so we're getting away from the creativity. So patterns is nice for building a house and so on, but it's not to build a human universe. So he's saying that fascia has that quality, and so that's an interesting thing to listen to him once in a while. And yeah.
So Bert, can I ask you a question? I really like that, and I would invite anybody that wants to ask a question to do so. You can unmute yourself and do so. I really like what you said about the sense of coherence, where we can operate from and invite in our client. So in the setting that we are presenting in this retreat, what are the practices that you would like us to experience or try, and what are you going to teach us so that maybe we can find that firstly in ourselves? How can we explore that also practically with you?
There are different ways that I use, and one is being together with the intention to be there and have the environment and stuff, and sort of do practices in one way to sort of tune into ourselves, to see also where you have difficulties to tune in, where there's maybe so. There are breathing methods just I like to work with forms of meditation where we sit and relate to gravity in the sitting and to breathing, and to see how while we're sitting, our mind is doing all kinds of things and coming up, how we can provide to a restless mind a place where it can rest. So those are practices. You can do that in 5 minutes and 10 minutes or whatever. There are other ways. I like to work sometimes um, in small movements that we could do, or also meeting or each other in touch, for instance. I think what I always like is to introduce that way of sitting with our nervous systems together, like with the back towards each other, and just experience yourself, and not in a cognitive way, but in just experiencing. And so there are different things. You can listen to music. I like you can listen to sounds. But while we're doing that, I would also like every day to do some sort of hands-on work, so that whatever we feel and do, that we sort of also practice, put it in a practice, and there are different ways to do that. But my intention would be every day to include some of the work with each other, or maybe one day on person, another day. But we need to train, maybe to be with the other person in different ways. You can work, actually, you can work directly on the fascia and working with the body, but you could also do things as, for instance, lifting an arm or lifting a leg, and explore for the person whose leg left is lifted, for instance, how it feels to let go. Can I let go or not? Or so you can. There are many different ways. You can go for walks, but the meeting together, creating a dialogue together also over what is happening, and sharing it, not in analyzing it all, but having a place where you can listen to it, listen to each other. And the listening is also an experiment. How can we sit together and listen without talking, maybe? So there are different ways that you can try to tune in to that fineness of your consciousness, and then see how you can bring it in practice. And so I don't know yet what form I will choose for that. But you could say you can work from the session model, and what I did very often is, like, you can use, let's say, a third session model, because I like that, because if somebody comes to me just wants one session, I usually take the third session, because you can go in many different ways, and let yourself be led to what is needed, for instance. So we can experiment with that, or you can experiment. I think Lisa wants to leave. I don't know. Do you want to say something? Oh, okay.
How come you choose the third?
Sorry?
How come you choose the third? The third session.
That's, for me, the third session is very often in the 10 session model. After first and second session, and it's sort of completing something of in the 3 sessions. It's completing and opening a base for like 4 or 5. 3 is a kind of conclusion in some way of what you did in the feet work and in the breath work and working the shoulders, and it's to me, and you get on on the side is a wonderful way to work. And you can really it's, from the whole connection with the pelvis, go in many different directions. So I find it in a session that is has this is a kind of invitation to be creative and work with a no mind and let yourself be informed. And because if you start working, if somebody comes to you and they say, "Well, I have 3 sessions, I have time to do 3 sessions," something like they have done already work. And then sometimes there's a tendency to go to 8, 9, and 10. So while you do an upper and a lower and then an integrative session. But 3 is, I think, it's really magic. And actually, it is not because I invented it, but I remember that Peter Melchior once told me that was his favorite. So I started experimenting with that, and yes, I think it's a magic session.
And if you have only one session, how come you don't choose the first, for example? You wouldn't go for a first.
Oh, I was talking about a first session with people who have already had work.
Okay.
If somebody would just come for a first session, I would do a first session.
Okay.
And if they were not sure if they were going to continue, because I think that's quite safe, and it gives a very nice information on the relationship of gravity, the body, the sense of space, breath. So it's an invitation for me. The first session is an invitation to open for the other sessions to come up. And of course, then there are other moments in the 10 sessions that you would say there's an invitation. And say maybe the first 3 sessions, when you finish them, you invite them to go to more deeper pelvic work. And because that's also, you need trust to go in there because it's a very, very sensitive area, very powerful. And very important later to organize the head too, because the pelvis and the sort of the whole jaw structure and all that is very much related. And I think when we're there, once in the retreat, those things will be touched on, and but also from your own interest. So I hope while we're there, certain issues maybe come up or questions and things, and then we have the chance to answer them, but also from that ground of, as I painted as, from this source level, from the, as a help from there, but then also sort of going in, what kind of issues it brings up in my life, and sharing that is usually a very good way to let it flow. And I think also group is an energy. Is in a certain point it creates its own energy. So there is a wisdom in it from what comes up.
And you've been leading retreats before.
Sorry?
You've been leading retreats before.
Yes.
And
yes.
How do you think that it's different from a usual workshop to teach in that setting? Why would it be important or different? Maybe not important, but different.
It is different in a certain way in the training, I guess you touch also this part of source consciousness and stuff while going through the 10 sessions, because in the training there's a lot of space for that too, as I know from my experience, but I was always invited in the training to spend a couple of days talking about experiencing the place from where you come from in the work, in a sort of interrelated relationship. But my retreats that I was referring to they were not related to structural integration, but they were related to working with the energy bodies, with the energy streams, chakras, stuff like that, and then sort of creating a week while we were doing that. And so I have experience coming from that, and try to integrate it in the work that we're doing in structural integration. And I believe it's if I'm reflecting on what Ida Rolf, where she's talking about, if you think that when she was training people, she had workshops in her training of students. She had people coming in watching chakra, and aura reader who was reading aura. She was really interested in results on the metaphysical level. But her idea was you need physicality to build up your metaphysics. That was kind of her thing. Because also in those days in Ashland, of course, there was a lot of psychological work done, and she felt it was really important to get your feet on the ground and get grounded, and then from there on also use your mind, but not the other way around. And I believe that's a creative circle too. You need also people that I don't work with on structural integration. When I sit with them, I always include in the session sitting, breathing, relating to gravity, and show them what it does to the mind, to the brain. Let's say the mental activity. So I learned a lot from those retreats, and I think in this retreat you will spend more time. We spend more time entering in the experiential part of it than maybe in the training itself, where you relatively much focused on learning the 10 sessions and see what happens, and it's new, so you need in some way maybe more sort of cognitive help and methods, where I feel once you are really into the work, the method is less important. But it's sort of it's something I still, if I in the work I was doing for 40 years with structural integration, I use very often that model. I realize because it's so strong, it's so powerful, but from a different way, of course, than when I started. But you start listening, you feel there's some wisdom in the 10 session model, how she set it up. But of course, there's much more to it in terms of who is doing it. And
I want to just take the opportunity for a second, just because she's here, if you don't mind, Bert, to say
what
hi.
is it? Sorry.
I want to just take the opportunity, just because she's here, to say hi
There's something
to
in
Maya.
There's something in my Maya, yes.
Yeah, just because she's, I think it would be nice to hear from her. She's been collaborating with Loural, with the Ecovillage, for a few years. She holds their retreats of Tai Chi. And maybe it's just nice to hear about, for just a minute, your experience there and how you feel maybe when you're there. Just a little feedback for us to get to know the place. Just for a moment.
Yeah, the place is magical, and of course there is. So we give retreats now already 5 years there every year. So and it's for Tai Chi, of course, also meditation. And for us, it's really, we noticed that our students, when they have been in Loural, really softened. They're so much more sensitive after, and it's so much different from practicing between our concrete walls at home. We have beautiful studios, but being in this natural environment. I mean, I remember last autumn was also so beautiful. It was really every morning we were practicing near the chestnut tree, below the chestnut tree, but every morning was really that was different. The colors were different, and one day it was very bit cloudy, misty. It was not clouds, but the clouds were hanging low, so we were literally moving in the clouds. And so you have all the time this interplay in this environment with the practice. I mean, we have our curriculum, but it's really adapted continuously with what the environment gives, and it's really really in this sense always a surprise for us as well how it how it evolves. And so I can relate to what Bert says. It's the group dynamics, but it's also the environment starts to, when you start to tune in, it starts to tell its story to you somehow. And it's a wonderful, of course, we're also very lucky there with these good cooks and the foods, so it's also a very healthy treat to have this, you're taking care of. People take care. It's a free place to wander around, and I think it will contribute definitely something in the practice. Just by being there and being together and practicing, you don't need to make up too much things from. Okay, what shall we do? What has to be done to have a good program? It will happen in any way, for sure. With all this expertise of Bert behind you, I really believe Loural will do the rest also.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
A wonderful place. Yeah.
You touched on something that for me was very important, and that's why I thought of Bert as being the teacher for this retreat. But I thought of this idea of fascia integration for finding a place where we can study, develop our skills, of course, but also where we have a place to rest and integrate, because very often also when we are exposed to so much knowledge, we don't really have that. And I really wanted to offer the possibility for practitioners to get together, to be guided in this knowing, and at the same time being taken care of. I mean, what you said is really like a little bit my idea, my dream for this project. And when I thought about who could start this adventure, I mean, Bert came to mind right away. I didn't have a doubt. Also because of his background on meditation and psychology, and offering this safety and coherence that he's talking about, I think it would be really beautiful for us as practitioners. Bert, you're muted if you want to say something. I don't know why you are muted.
Yeah, there is safety, but of course sometimes the weather can be bad.
In October,
that makes me you can. We the very first retreat, this car got stuck uphill, and it was a very, very heavy rain, and it was a very narrow street, so they couldn't turn. So they arrived really late in the evening. So I advise better to arrive daytime, and they arrived late, so it was dark and it was raining. And then they arrived somewhere they couldn't see where they were, and actually already quite soon had to go to bed. And also in the night, the electricity got broken. That usually doesn't happen. I don't want to scare the people. I just tell this because even this contributed to a very nice experience, because the morning after we had a meditation at 6:00. And we went to the studio room with the windows facing the valley. And because it was still dark outside, the window was like a mirror. So the people were sitting meditation in front, and they saw their own image. But slowly the light came, and the image merged into this light until they saw the mountains and the trees outside. And then they arrived. And you felt the whole atmosphere changing, and it was so magical because it was such a disaster the evening before for some people, you know, that they had this, wow, what is happening here? And you saw really this, first it was a mirror, very flat image, and you got this depth. And it was, yeah, so it's also learning to appreciate that sometimes it's of course it's you're outside and you have, of course, you have your shelter, you have your bed, you have your room, but it's also you're in relation with what weather will bring. Yeah. So and yeah.
Since
So
then,
I hope
we give torches to participants.
Sorry?
Since then, we have torches and extra lights for participants.
Yeah. Since then, you have extra torches. Yes, yes. No, but even, you know, it is always a solution for it. So you really, it's not the issue, and it is very comfortable. It's not like you're in a
no, but what you're saying is also
left in the woods. Yeah, yeah.
But what you're saying is also the feeling that I have had from, you know, I only saw the pictures and a little bit story from Chiara. But this is what I really believe in, to pick up the coherence of the environment. And I guess also the intention of the people who created that place there. And so the fact that you all have been there doing this thing for years, there must be already some build-up.
Yes.
And I believe that is really very, very important part of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because those experiences,
really...
I love those experiences you're describing, because I feel also that in the obstacles and all the things that we have, where do you refer to? You know, it's like problem solving for a certain thing. Yes, if the car has to, you know, in some way, but there's a lot of mental activity going on that you can deal with, you know, can learn from while having this experience. Yeah. Wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah. But I also really, really like this initiative, Chiara, you're taking to have a place with this, to, yeah, how you say that it's not a workshop situation. Like,
right.
I mean, you were referring to Zen practice. Of course, this is also a kind of a journey practice which you somehow do alone, somehow with others, because in the company with other people in the environment. And it's to really embrace that you embody this sensitivity, and that the practice is not only the practice with the client and the techniques and all the things you learn and the expertise, but it's also really your own something in yourself as a development. And to have people and build up a community like you're now starting, that you can feel safe to do together. It's also a form of safety, not only for the client, but also for practitioners to develop in their own way, in their being, in their work. I really appreciated this initiative.
Totally, yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I'm not practicing Zen, by the way, but I had the Buddhist training with more Tibetan, and so there's a lot
more Tibetan.
There's more energy and movement in it involved too.
More dynamic. Okay, I thought you mentioned the Zen as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm very basically also finding your own voice. You know, it's like in Dzogchen Buddhism, it's very much you know, like they use the sound ah, for instance, ah as the first thing that comes before the light, before the world is created. So it's really like the ah is really like in a mantra related to finding your own source, and because of that there's a lot of movement in your body, and then sort of the practices related to how you can deal with the body while it's moved energetically. So also sitting with yourself and having this movement in yourself. So, and for me, that relates a lot to what could happen also in structural integration. Like if you put your hands on someone, we trust movement and not interfere movement with stillness. You always say, train stillness, but don't interrupt movement. Don't be with movement, but don't interrupt stillness.
Yeah, so do not try to be in control. Somehow. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Nice.
and also, I like the notion that somebody said, stability doesn't exist in life, like stableness. It's like my favorite quantum physicist, Hans-Peter Dürr, said, if you want stability, you better lay between put yourself in the coffin. Most stable. You don't do anything.
Most so.
And so he liked the definition of that. He said stability doesn't exist in nature, and balance is a balance of dynamics of instabilities. Like he gives the example: if you start moving, you move your head, you stand on one leg, and it's very unstable. But then the second leg comes in and creates the stability, and then the other leg goes up. It's like you're always in instabilities, and because of that, you start connecting to it. And so I always like those kind of things, because the mind or psyche talks a lot about stable. I want to be stable. I want to reach a goal. I want to get something, and that's not how it goes.
Well, then you lose some playfulness as well.
Yes, you have to be more in the present, and to learn. If something doesn't work, you start practicing that. If I'm working in a garden and need to move something and don't know how to do it, I keep trying from this angle and that angle, and in that way, you're looking for the dynamic thing in it, whatever you're doing. It can be very subtle, it can be very strong. Sometimes you sit in nature, and you have a big problem, and suddenly you sit there in the stillness, and the problem doesn't look that big anymore.
Yeah.
Soft. And I had a lot of those experiences in SI. Was that there was. I remember one day that I had a client, and I thought, I was in the work, and then the end of the work, I felt, well, I don't know if we reached anything. I had some confusion about it. And the next time the client came back and said it was the best session I ever had. It's like my judgment about confusion was in the way. It's like I was maybe picking up on things, but we did something. It's like, and or I remember maybe discussions with my wife about something, and you felt there was you didn't do anything about it, and then suddenly you felt coming close and being close again, and sort of we need dynamics. We need to be involved, waking up in order to get somewhere. But you also have to learn to be very sort of take places, as I would say. Watch your gaps. Go for the gap in the story. Like then the story is still there, but you interfere with breathing, sitting in yourself, and then start again and look into what is needed. So also there, I will offer various things that people can take home with them as small little practices to use in your day, not only during your work, but in your day.
Thank you so much.
And of course, there's a lot of.
Would you say that is sorry? Yeah, would you say this sometimes this sense of uncertainty from did I manage to do anything to reach in the session or at the moment, this confusion, would you say it's part of the beginner, or you're always a beginner in this sense, and it's still there after 40 years of practice?
Yes, I think so. And
it's still there? Yeah. Okay.
Krishnamurti used to say, the psyche is on its best when it's insecure. And he really said, because then you're open to learn and find something. But if you're too much into using the psyche for resolving problems, and psyche is a wonderful thing, but it's like it's governed by rigid systems, sometimes patterns, stuff like that. But insecurity is where you learn most. Then you're, like you said,
curious.
For me, it is. If I would not have that, I'm in an age in my life, in a period of my life where I know at some point it will end, closer than when I was 20. But what I most learned is that I don't know, that I don't want to know so much. I have so much I want. I have a hat that wants to sort of, also wants to be on top. But I have to learn. I'm so happy with not knowing. And my wife is very happy with me because of that. Because, it's like this, it's so lovely to be sort of in an unknown phase, because you're not judging and not grasping on something, and it's more of a dance,
Nice. Yeah.
So
Thank
probably
you so
when we
much,
sit
Bert.
there with more people, a lot of those small little wisdoms come up, you will learn.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you, everybody, so much. I'm the timekeeper. We are here for an hour and 20. We could go on. I'm really looking forward to having you there. And
it feels like we're warming up while we're going on.
Yeah.
Thank you for organizing all of this. It's wonderful.
My pleasure.
It's such a good work.
My pleasure. Yeah. If you guys have any question, if you need any information, you can find a lot on the site, but you can always write us or send a message. There is a form on the site. And I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you for everybody for being here.
Thank you all for taking your time. Yes, wonderful.
You can unmute yourself if you want to say something.
Thank you, Pierre.